I'm Jade, from Mortal Kombat. You know, saved Earthrealm from evil, yada yada yada. That was tough, but now I'm ready for some real competition. Here, write this down. I'm 362436, and I'm a Scorpio. Got it? Winning Girls Gone Wired isn't just about a pretty face. You think Pamela Anderson can high kick a guy into rotating saw blades? I've got the brains, the brawn, and the polygons to win this thing, if I have to break every one of you in half to do it. So vote for me, Jade.
To tonight's segment, we'll be talking about gender roles in video games. Have women of today's video games taken on more manly roles and become their own protagonists, or have they become more of sex objects in today's video game industry? Women in video games has been both a controversial and academic study because of the two occurring facts. Are women taking on more independent roles like their male counterparts, or are they just being over-sexualized in today's media? And men in video games presented them in subsidiary roles, depending on a male protagonist. Like some of the most familiar games that show this are Super Mario, with Princess Peach always needing Mario to rescuing her, or The Legend of Zelda. Basically, I want to show how female characters have changed over the years. Because when I played games, I always saw female characters as like the damsel in distress. It was fun, but it also got boring over the years.
I think that lately video games try to embody a powerful character, but I think that they not a lot of games can do it without portraying them sexually or exploiting them or just showing a lot of skin.
I think that in video games, it goes half and half, you know. There are a lot of women who are portrayed really good in video games, such as Samus and Sheik, really badass. But at the same time, there are a lot of video games that overexploit the sexuality of women, such as I don't want to say Bayonetta, but Bayonetta is a good example of how sex is really used to show off a woman's abilities.
Video games is kind of watered down, and the only other times I've ever seen women actually take the lead in any video games is when they're added in, like Gears of War 3 or maybe in Halo Reach. And it's kind of at the end of the series where they're kind of added in. And they're usually as backup characters whenever you think about other video games.
Sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive. You gotta give and take. You have Princess Peach, and she's supposed to wait the whole time for Mario to save her from a giant monkey. Each part is supposed to portray women in a good light. Princess Peach waiting for her man. That lady from Gears of War saving the world, but scantily clad while she's doing it. It's ridiculous, I think.
I feel like they're more equal to their their counterparts, men. But at the same time, I feel like they're degraded a little bit because they obviously are wearing less clothing, typical type stuff like that. But they've gotten a lot more strength type things, and they can kind of clash.
You know, the Melina you saw Bayonetta, that sure they're supposed to be powerful women, but you know, they're obviously wearing way too revealing and stuff that's not very suitable for combat. It's not really realistic at all. And then we got people like, say, Lara Croft or Samus that actually, you know, they look sexy. and yet they don't seem to be objectifying women. They're really just action heroes that are supposed to heroines.
When they started to take on more manly roles, like Laura Croft when she came out, I thought that was interesting, because it's not like all the other typical games were, where you always had to play a male character saving whoever, either a city or a princess, which got pretty boring. When the women started taking on more manly roles, it started to get more interesting, because you could see that they could stand up with the male characters, like they could fight the same way as the male characters equally, which was real interesting and was more exciting when you played the game. But because of the media, they became highly sexualized. I mean, even though they became highly sexualized, I was more focused on the character, not what they looked like. Most definitely.
Sex sells. Ever hear that statement? It works for everything. You can sell a bowl of cereal by implying that a guy will get more action by eating the cereal. And games are no exception to that rule.
It's not even as discreet as it used to be. Like the sexual innuendos kind of now it's just obvious. Like, it's just we've got girls who are like in wrestling matches who are on stripper poles and stuff like that. I think that says something about the direction we're going in with video games and women.
Yeah. Rarely do you have a character who's a woman who isn't just outright gorgeous or has really big breasts. Whereas whenever we have male characters, we always have someone who looks just ugly with scars all over their faces. They're carrying so much armor, whereas the girls have to wear thin armor that wouldn't even protect them in a cold wind, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like, even in fighting games especially, they're wearing claws, whereas Scorpion comes in fully geared with a mask on to mess you up. The girls, maybe a drape and some high heels.
I think, especially back in the past, women and sex went hand in hand in video games. Like Metroid, Samus is, when she's finally revealed as a woman, she's in a bikini, and it's like, that's what the guys want to see, you know. She could have came out in, you know, a nice little officer suit or something like that, but no, this woman has on a blue bikini showing all her goodies, and that was just special to me.
Video games will either have a guy with a gun on the front or a woman with a gun on the front. And sometimes games come with two different packagings. One will have the woman and one will have the man. And sometimes these games are sold to a preteen audience or a teen audience. And most of those people are boys. Boys, especially teen boys, are hormonal and they'll pick up anything that has boobs in it that they can, you know, fantasize about or whatever they like to do. And they just marketing knows how to get us. They know how to make us feel a certain way because that's what they're paid to do.
Definitely in some video games. I mean, it depends on what video game you're playing, but a lot of the time, a lot of people will, like I said, dress like less clothes, that type of stuff. It gets more attention, but it's more practical, I guess. I mean, if you're gonna fight, why would you wear all that clothes to get in the way? But at the same time, I think it kind of is demeaning a little bit, but it makes sense.
The gaming industry is basically a male-dominated industry, and since you have more males playing than females, they want to appeal more to the male fantasy, because that's why they highly sexualize the women. By like in fighting game, you see like Mortal Kombat, you see the female characters have like less clothing than the male characters. That's showing how they want to appeal more to their sexuality, appeal more to the male fantasy by showing these women fighting like basically half naked. And like basically everybody knows this term, sex sells.
Varies on the video game you're playing, but I think that they definitely make powerful characters, but that's video games like Final Fantasy versus stuff like Grand Theft Auto. So I definitely think there's a big difference depending on the game that you are playing. Definitely.
Yeah, I can say that. Women in video games, they've definitely come a long way. As I said, from the bikini-clad Samus to the now, you know, it doesn't have to always be about showing some skin, even though it's still there, because that's what brings in the viewers. Well, it brings in the male viewers anyway. Some of the female viewers too, but yeah, they've definitely grown a lot, I could say. The women have upgraded. The girls are back in town.
You have to get a game that has a female protagonist for her to be equal to men, to her be able to do the things men do. Games like Alice, The Madness Returns. There's only her. She fights her way through this imaginary hallucinogenic world that she's created herself, but she still fights in it. She still is her own hero. She figures out everything she needs to find out, and she saves herself. She doesn't need anybody to come to her rescue, and she does just fine. She saves herself.
They're almost equal, but they're not completely there. They can do a lot of the same things. Actually, sometimes they'll do more than a man can in a video game because they want to portray them as the heroine and that they're strong and they can put a man in their place, that kind of thing. But I feel like, and we're not relying on men as much in the video games anymore, that type of thing.
Usually, in a lot of games, whenever you have a male lead, the women are just kind of background characters. Auxiliary features to a game.
No. After all, they still get objectified and still have to play person needs to be saved about half the time. I mean, it's getting there, but it's hard to say that you can have men and women be equals, even if it's the video game world. I mean, there has to be some aspect of realism. There's differences in what they mean by equal. Like, I guess the sum total can be equal, but not necessarily.
Despite how they're dressed or their physical appearances, the women have proven to be able to stand up to their male counterparts as equals, despite the fact that despite how they're dressed or their physical appearances, they have proven to become successful in the video game industry, and by taking on more protagonist roles as the male counterparts also proves that. Yeah, I do think women will probably take on more roles, and they probably do have a big future ahead of them in the gaming industry. We just have to wait and see.
Jade wins. Flawless victory.
Or maybe not. So. Alright, so that's the end of our tonight's segment. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again soon.
What? Well, let me roll up onto the sidewalk and take a look, yeah? Whoa! She's beautiful.